So how did they decide specifically to either stop information or propagate misinformation that would aid Joe Biden?
Yeah. Yes, that is exactly the right question. So, I mean, I think the thing you have to understand is that Trump was viewed by the deep state, by CIA, FBI, Pentagon,
NSA,
and all of the elites. And you're right, it's bipartisan in the sense that it's both never Trump Republicans and Democrats. What freaked them out the most about Trump is that he was threatening to pull the U.S. out of NATO. I don't think that was. I just think that was bluster. Like, that's insane. Like, and by the way, I should say, I support what we call the Western Alliance. I support providing military security for our allies in Asia and in Europe. I'm not there's parts of economic nationalism that I respect, but I don't think we should pull out of NATO. I think NATO has provided peace in the world and mostly been a good thing. It's obviously had some crazy abuses like Iraq. This whole experience has made me rethink my support for Ukraine. But I think it's important to understand that Trump terrified the deep state and the national security establishment. So did Brexit. There's a sense in which you had a guy on here named Peter Zion who wrote this book called this really apocalyptic book about how the world is going to fall apart. And his whole argument, which I don't agree with, I think he's brilliant, but I think the argument's wrong. His whole argument is based on the idea that the United States is going to stop providing military security to our allies in Asia and Europe. It's all just based on this assumption that Trump is the beginning of the U.S. withdrawing from its traditional role since World War II. There's a bunch of people who obviously their ideology, their livelihoods, their identity, just their whole way of life is tied up with the United States providing this protection for Europe and Asia, and they viewed Trump as threatening that. I also think they just really hated the guy. They looked down on him. He was crude and all the things that people don't like about him.
And he spoke disparagingly about the intelligence community.
Yeah. I mean,
which is crazy.
Absolutely. He was against the war in Iraq. He was different. He was a nationalist Republican. And what's so interesting is that, if you read people like, people on the left, like Noam Chomsky and others who have been critics of U.S. or Glenn Greenwald, who are critics of, and I think Matt Taibbi, critics of U.S. government, military invasions around the world since World War II. I mean, we've overthrown many governments, right? Iran, Chile, Guatemala, and what the pattern is that these are places where nationalists, sometimes socialists, but often just nationalists who were trying to control their economies and they didn't want foreign interference, were coming to power. And the U.S. government would see that as a threat to providing, to having this liberal global order, as it's called. And so they saw Trump as an existential threat to this post-war liberal order, and they viewed social media as the means to his power, which I think was exaggerated. So on the one hand, they saw a threat. I think they also saw an opportunity. The war on terror, we won. I mean, huge victory. I mean, it's shocking how successful it was in some ways. So you have a bunch of people that suddenly need something to do. So there's a lot of motivations there. And then you also have the guys that lost the Hillary campaign. John Podesta, he was her chair of her campaign. He runs the most powerful, progressive, frankly, propaganda organization in the world, or at least in the United States, the Center for American Progress. They were looking also for some reason, someone to blame for their own failures, for the dislikability of Hillary. And so there was just a lot of motivations to try to get control over social media platforms. They felt like they had lost control of them.